Welcome to another episode of the German Joiner. This is going to be pretty much the final episode of the Incra router table system. I'm going to show you how the dust collection works and why it's efficient using the Incra Clean Sweep, why the table is the size that it is. It's quite large for a router table, and as far as the orientation of the fence goes, someone was asking about that. It seems that it should go the other way. The long way of the table should support the material. So I'm going to show you why it's set up the way that it is, why it's an efficient system, and some of the features that the Incra lead screw positioner offers on a router table, and why I chose to go with Incra rather than some of the other high-end ones like General or Craig. So let me show you the router table in its entirety, and then we'll go from there, and I'll do a couple demonstrations on the dust collection and things such as that. So here is the system complete. You can see it's got a lot of little accessories. I'll start off with this T-track here. Now this is a double T-track, so you can see, let me show you from here. It's got two separate sizes to accommodate different types of jigs. So depending on what you're going to be using this for, you can make different jigs, 90-degree jigs, things like that, or you could purchase them. It also accepts Incra's iBox to make box joints. The 90-degree jig is great for dovetails. You could put a dovetail bit in there, and they have different, I'll show you right here, they have different scales. So it came with this entire package of scales, and I don't know if you could see, but there's probably 40 different plastic scales in here. I have yet to open them and try them out. But basically what you would do is you would take this scale, and if you come back here on the lead screw, you have this metal scale, which is magnetic and can be moved around. You have also these other two scales that you can, this one you can zero out. You can see they slide back and forth. This is the centering scale. So if you're looking to get the center of something, it will tell you exactly where to go as far as that goes. You can line the scales up. And then there's this blank spot here. So you could take these scales, and right in the end here, you could slide those in, zero them out, and it's all set for doing dovetail joinery and all kinds of crazy stuff. This fence is extremely, extremely accurate. There's no guesswork. You're not lining up to a line and trying to cut. What it basically does is, I'll come around the other side here, there's this screw. It's basically just a long threaded rod. And in here, if I pull this back, I don't know if you could really see. No, I can hardly see it in there. Let's see if we can go in this way and see it. So inside there, you see that piece of metal? All the way in there. What that is basically like a cut nut, and it has threads on it. And what those threads do is they mesh with this screw. So you have a positive lock, and now there's a thread every, I believe it's a 32nd of an inch. So every 32nd of an inch there's a thread. So that's how infinitely adjustable it is. Now if you need to go somewhere in between one of those 30 seconds, there's this wheel with a dial indicator on it, and I can just click this, and what that does is it turns, what I would do is loosen that, and what it does is it turns the screw inside. So now I can adjust it 1/1000th of an inch at a time. So each click is 1/1000th of an inch. So I can adjust that to be perfect. Now, the nice thing about this clean sweep is that you can put a bit in here, turn on the dust collection, it will actually suck the sawdust down inside this box. So here's the box, if you watch the other videos. And inside there is the router, motor on the lift, and as you can see there's a blast gate down there, and I can open and close that, and basically you just hook it up to a dust collector. It's got a 4-inch port, and it does a very nice job of keeping things clean. Now if you've used a router table without, you know basically what they do as far as sawdust. Another nice thing about this is I have this like spaghetti of hoses over here. So there's a 4-inch port that goes out of that clean sweep on the bottom. Now the Incra Wonder Fence has a, I believe it was a 2.5-inch port. So basically you could take this elbow here, and when attached to a a length of flex hose. You can attach that in there, and this entire fence is hollow. And then, let's slide this out of the way. Inside there, you will get a vacuum, and it will, if you're doing, let me show you. If you're doing an edge joint or an edge profile, you have the fence here. Only usually about half of the bit or less is showing. So you're going to do an edge profile. You'll get it to suck down through here, but you'll also get great dust collection right through this fence. So you'll turn on the dust collection and it'll do a beautiful job. So the issue with this, and this exact reason I put this on, if you see I put a blast gate here, so I can open and shut the fence off so I don't lose suction. So I would close that blast gate if I'm doing something like this. So now I can do dados. I could set this bit in here, adjust this fence to exactly where I want it to be, and I can run a dado. The reason I would shut the fence off is because when you're doing a dado, the cut is happening over here. This isn't going to do anything. It's not going to suck any air or create any type of efficient vacuum to extract any of the dust. So I would just shut that off basically and move that to the back. And what's nice about this, one of the reasons, now if you look at this, it's actually a longer table than it is wide, which is usually the opposite of what a router table is. You would assume that this fence would be sideways. One reason that it's as long as it is because of this long arm, this lead screw on the back side here. Now that lead screw needs a lot of space. They call it gray space. So on the back side of this router, this is the one downside of this setup. On the back side of this router, if I move this fence all the way back, this arm is going to stick out a good 2 feet off the back side of this router. It's actually the reason I have not put one on my table saw. They also make a table saw fence. But to get a 52-inch of cut, you need a heck of a lot of room on the right side of the blade. So I haven't done that. I'm going to stick with my Biesmeyer over there. But that's why it's as long as it is. And the reason I chose the longer table rather than doing maybe like a side clamping fence or something like that, is for dados. Now if I'm doing something for shelving, so imagine this here, this piece of plywood is the casework on a shelf unit. Now I could cut these dados for shelves. These were a couple test cuts I did and they came out really nice. It's a beautiful setup. I can actually cut dados up to 2 feet away from the bit because this is a 25-inch arm on this machine. So I'll move this stuff out of the way. And what I'll do is I'll slide this fence all the way back. And now you can see I can be cutting dados that far out. So I'll show you. All I have is the metric tape. But from there to the bit, I'm looking at 520, roughly 520 millimeters out, which is almost 2 feet, I believe. So yeah, it's really a nice setup. So I got about probably from the edge of the bit to here, maybe 22 inches. So it's a nice setup that way. It does a lot of other things that a lot of router tables won't. Now, any router table, if you put a bit in it and you sit there and you tinker with it, you could dial it in. You could dial it in and get it to work. And maybe do dovetails or box joints or things like that. You're going to be messing with it for a long time. Trying to get the setup is probably going to be an issue. Whereas this is just repeatable. It's accurate and it's repeatable, so it saves a lot of time as far as setting up things such as that. So it came with also this. So here's one of their shop stops, if you've never used Incra before. Basically everything that they do is set up on a 32nd of an inch. So on the back of the fence here, if you can see this, see if I can zoom out there. So I don't know if you could see it, but there's teeth on this. And on the back of the shop stop, there are also teeth. As I pulled it off the piece. There are also teeth on the back of this. Ah, you can see it much better there. So those are those teeth. And what happens is when you put this on, it actually meshes with those teeth and you can't move it. So it's a really nice setup that way. So you could actually take this shop stop when it's together and use it for plunge cuts. So if you need to do a stop dado or something like that, you can plunge the piece of material down where it needs to go and it'll stop right there. You shut the machine off, you take the piece off, and now you have a nice stop dado. And then all you have to do is chisel out the corners, or if you cut the shelf a little shorter or whatever, the mortise a little shorter that's going into that, you don't even have to worry about the rounded corners from the bit. So it's a really nice setup. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I've given you kind of the walkthrough of this, and if you want more of the details, check out Incra's channel. They have tons of walkthroughs on how to do this. You can use it as a jointer for small things. You can actually offset these fences. There's lots of little things and whatever, little tricks that you can use to make this do those things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually run a dado in this piece of plywood, and I'm going to leave the dust collection off on the first one so you could see how much dust is actually created. And then on the next one, I'm going to do it with the dust collection on so you can see how really efficient this setup is. The only thing I will say is these rings. You see how I have to keep that clearance? I tried it with just the one for the 3/4 inch bit here. This is a pattern bit, but I tried the one with the narrower opening, so it's a little more close clearance, more like a zero clearance insert. The problem I was having was I wasn't getting airflow into it. So in the beginning of the cut, it would kind of spew sawdust out. Then it would catch up with itself. But by just opening it up with this one, they do make other inserts that have grooves cut into them. I don't know why they didn't send those with the setup. I bought the clean sweep. I should get the inserts that come with it, but that's an Incra thing. I probably just misread the information when I ordered it. So for now, that's what I'm going to do. I might take the rest of those plates over there and maybe machine some grooves into it myself so I don't have to spend, I think it's 50 bucks for the other set, and I really don't want to spend any more money. So I'll probably do something like that, drill some holes, something to create some more of a vacuum. But for now, this works. So I have this nice opening around it. I will show you what it looks like with the dust collection off and on so you could see how efficient this actually is. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut on this with the dust collector off so you can see how that works. And you can see basically what a standard router table is going to do, what's going to happen with the sawdust, and how much of it a 3/4 inch bit is going to make when you're cutting a dado. So let me run the plywood through this with no dust collection so you can see what it looks like. And then afterward we'll run it with dust collection on so you can see how clean it keeps the router table and how efficient it really is. So as you can see, I'm not really hogging out a lot of material, but you can see it kind of makes a rooster tail of sawdust that shoots off the end of the table. Once you get about midway in the dado, you know, once the plywood is spanned over this distance, it's usually not too bad because the sawdust is dropping down inside. It's kind of trapped there. But on the beginning cut, and as you get toward the end, it starts shooting out the back side of the router table. So it makes a bit of a mess. And that was only one cut, so it's not, you know, the end of the world. But if I'm cutting dados in plywood for 2 hours, it's going to make a mess. So I just turn the dust collection on, and I don't have to worry about it. So let me clean this off, and I'll show you what it looks like with the dust collection on. So as you can see, it does a very nice job of making a dado, just like any router table would. The benefit is, look at the dust. There is none. It does a beautiful job of collecting dust. So that's really the benefit of something like this. So I think the Incra router table with the clean sweep, if you buy everything as a system, is a great setup. Sometimes the cost will outweigh the benefit. This is not a cheap setup. So if you're not looking to spend this type of money, I completely understand. But if you do have the money and you want to make an efficient use of your time and you want to set something up where you're not worried about cleanup after, you want repeatability, you want the versatility to do dovetail joints, box joints, all of those things on your router table, then I think this is the system you need to get. Go with Incra. You will be happy every single time. So that's it for me. Thank you for tuning in. And hopefully this answers everyone's questions. If there's any more, I'd be happy to answer them in the comment section below. So please feel free to ask. Please subscribe. And thank you for tuning in. Again, see ya.